Before I get started, I want to wish you all a very happy 2022. This year, I think, is going to be, it's going to be a difficult year, quite frankly. But, well, you know, we'll just have to make the best of it. 2020 and 2021 were pretty much garbage, and I think 2022 is going to be more of the same, if not worse. So just buckle up and just keep in mind something that's really important. No matter how bad things get, understand that you can survive it. There are very few things that you really cannot survive. And the crap that is going to be coming your way this year, just be amused by it. Don't let it pull you down. You let it pull you down and it'll basically own you. But if you laugh at it, and just realize what a clown world the whole situation is, you'll have a much better go of it. Okay? Okay, so let me get to the Patreon video. Yeah, only 3 ways. Now those 3 ways, they might seem obvious, but there's a lot of subtlety in each of them. Let me explain. Of course, the first thing I ought to do is enumerate the 3 ways that you can make money, the only 3 ways that you can make money. So here goes. The first way is, of course, by selling your time. What do I mean by that? Yeah, you know, you do some labor activity, whatsoever that activity might be, and you sell your time that you do that activity. You're a day laborer, for instance, on a construction site, and you're getting paid, I don't know, maybe $50 a day or something like that. You're selling your time. You're a lawyer. You're getting paid $500 an hour for your legal expertise. Well, you're doing the exact same thing. You're selling your time. The second way to make money is to sell other people's time. Yeah, you gather a bunch of people and they do something that makes you money. That is, you organize a company. Like, to go back to the lawyer example, which is a great example in many ways. See, a partner at a law firm, what does he do? He doesn't actually see that many clients. What he does is he manages the junior lawyers in his firm. That's his real job. And what he does, of course, is that, see, he bills out those hours of his junior lawyers. That is, he sells the time of his junior lawyers to various clients with the various legal paperwork crap. You see the difference, see? A lawyer who works as a lawyer sells his time for money, but a law firm partner, somebody who's managing a bunch of lawyers, he doesn't sell his own time. He manages the sale of the other people's time. Now, this model is a great way to think of companies and corporations, and I'll get to it in just a little bit. Because now I want to get into the third way to make money, which is by selling an asset. Selling an asset that you bought in the past or you acquired in the past somehow for less money, and you're selling it now for a lot more money. Think of Bitcoin or any other cryptocurrency. Think of NFTs. Think of gold or silver. Think of real estate. All of these transactions, what is it? You're buying something at one price, say 100, and then you're selling it later on at 130 or 140. And that difference in price, that's your profit. That's how you made your money. You look at any kind of business, any kind of money-making activity, and you will realize that it's one of these 3 models. Either you are selling your time, or you are organizing other people to sell their time, or you are selling an asset. Whatsoever that asset may be, no matter how trivial that asset may be, you're selling it at a higher price from what you acquired it for. Now, this is the way I look at money making in all of its permutations, and it's proven to be a very useful model to simplify and figure out what kind of business am I involved in? What is the risk factor in the business? Where can I get hurt? And where can I stand to make a lot of money? Let's go one at a time. For instance, the first one, selling your time. Most ambitious guys realize early on that selling your time is a waste of time. Yeah, because your time is finite. You only have, 8-10 hours in the day, working hours in the day. And suppose you do manage to sell all 10 hours. Well, you're going to be like working like a dog and for not much money. Even when you're making a lot of money, you think that, for instance, a lawyer making $500 an hour, that's a lot of money. But it's really not. It's really not, because it's the ceiling. A lawyer earning $500 an hour, $500 an hour, and he works 10 hours. He doesn't. But let's suppose that he manages to bill 10 hours per day. That's 50 hours per week. 4 weeks to the month, that's roughly what? I had to break out the calculator. $500 an hour times 10 is $5,000 per day. Times 5 days per week, that's $25,000 per week. That's roughly $100,000 a month, roughly $1.2 million per year. Now you think to yourself that $1.2 million per year is a lot of money, and it is. But it actually isn't. And that's his ceiling. That's as much as he can make. I mean, he might have to work weekends or something like that and maybe like eke out a little bit more, but $1.2 million per year is not real money. Now, is it? Of course not. And see, that's the high end of a laborer selling his time. $1.2 million per year. But of course, if you are putting together a company where you aggregate the labor of a bunch of people and you sell that, well, then you're talking a lot more now, aren't you? Of course. The limit of that, who knows? And that's the beauty of it. That's the beauty of setting up a corporation or a company, a business where you manage people who work per hour. You don't work per hour, they do. And you manage it and you scale it up. See? Because see, managing 2 people, you will discover when you start managing people, managing 2 people is pretty hard, but managing 4 is actually not that much more difficult. It's actually almost the same. And you will discover to your shock that managing 2 people has its challenges, but managing 20 people, it's not that much different, because it's actually the first couple of people that's the big hump. But once you pass those first couple of people mentally, once you are managing 2 or 3 or 4 people, all of a sudden managing 10, 20, 30, 40 people is actually remarkably easy. Yeah, because one of the secrets you'll discover of working in a corporate environment, I'm not talking about a big corporation, just any little company, your little company, for instance, is that, see, when you start scaling up the number of workers, they naturally fall into a hierarchy. And the different departments, the different sections of whatever company you're doing, they very, very naturally start to arrange themselves. And the leaders of the different levels of whatever business you are doing, they naturally emerge and start giving orders to people below them, or not so capable or not so strong as them. Yeah? And so that's the weird thing, the magic of it, that when you manage 2 people or 3 people, it's very difficult. But managing 30, 40, 50, 100 people is not that much more difficult. So you see why a corporation or a company where you have multiple people and you are managing multiple people can be so much more effective in terms of making money, right? But then we come to the third way of making money, which is to have an asset, no matter what the asset is. I mean, it could be something as trivial as this. This is just some bit of wood that fell out of something I was making, right? You can have something as trivial as this that costs you nothing to manufacture and figure out a way to sell it for a lot of money. That kind of business is actually the riskiest kind of business. It has the most upside, but also you can be left holding the bag. See, the key issue of having an asset, a little object, whatsoever that object may be, whatever that asset may be, an NFT, a piece of gold, real estate, whatever. The problem is always finding the buyer. The buyer, see? Because something is only worth what a buyer is willing to pay for it. This little scrap of wood that I held up that I showed you earlier, this is a trivial piece of wood. It has no value. None whatsoever. It was a knot in a piece of lumber that fell out. That's all it is. It's nothing. But somewhere in the world there is somebody who's willing to pay money, good money, for it. Maybe not $1 million for it, but maybe $50 or $100. And the effort to find this person who would buy this thing, it's going to be very challenging. And that's why I'm not going to bother. Because this little scrap of wood, it's really worthless. It didn't cost me any effort, so there's no reason for me to go looking for a buyer for it, because it's no big deal, and the effort to find the buyer is so enormous that it's not really worth it. But what happens when you have an asset that you've put a lot of effort into it, or you've put a lot of money into it? You've put a lot of money into some particular asset, and you want to sell it at a higher price, or at least an equal price. That is when you can get into trouble. A lot of trouble. And this is where the sunk cost fallacy comes in. You know, my favorite fallacy, the one that makes us, the one that's most human. Okay, let me explain. See, suppose I buy a piece of land. A piece of land for $100,000. Doesn't matter what it is. Commercial real estate, residential, fallow land, it doesn't matter. I buy it for $100,000 with the expectation of selling it later on, you know, or improving it somehow to increase its value, whatnot. I mean, ultimately the whole goal is to later on sell it for a higher price, right? Now, suppose I spent $100,000, but the real estate market tanks. Or I bought a piece of land thinking that that area was going to become extremely lucrative, that they were going to make developments and whatnot, and my piece of land was going to be worth a lot more later on. But then, you know, like the county decided that was the area that they were going to set up a toxic waste dump, okay? And all of a sudden, my piece of land that I paid $100,000 for, now it's worth much less. This is where you get into trouble, and this is how people lose their shirts on the stock market or the bond market. See, because they bought something at a particular price, at this price, and it goes down in price, and they decide not to sell it. They decide not to sell it, and it keeps on going down in price, and down and down and down it goes until it is worth practically nothing. This happens all the time, where people put a lot of effort or a lot of money, and money you can think of it as the same thing. They put a lot of money, effort into some asset, expecting it to sell for a high price, and then because of conditions, the price goes down and down, and as it slides down, the owner of the asset refuses to sell. Refuses to sell because he's like, I put so much money and effort into it, I don't want to sell at such a low price, I don't want to take that loss, and then the price keeps on going down until they lose it all. This happens all the time. Great fortunes have been lost because of the sunk cost fallacy. The notion of holding on to an asset and not selling it when it starts to go down in price. Because we always have this hope that it'll rise in price, it'll go back up. And this is what kills us. And it's happened to me plenty of times. And I should know better because I've thought about these issues. But even with somebody who's thought about them, you can fall into that trap. Now, as an older man, and this lesson having been really ingrained into me, it doesn't happen to me so often. So now, when I start to see an asset that starts to slide in price, I get out of it. I don't hold on to any kind of nostalgia. I get out of it and I figure, well, you know, if it starts going back up in value, then I'll get into it again, whatsoever that asset may be. But I'm not going to follow this asset all the way to the bottom. I'm not going to let it be an anchor that drowns me. So you see how dangerous that third way of making money can be? Yeah, I'm looking at the whole cryptocurrency situation and NFTs and all this stuff. And I'm thinking to myself that when the crash happens, a lot of people are going to lose their shirts because they're going to hold on to it. They're going to hold on to their Bitcoin or their NFTs or whatever and refuse to sell, thinking that at some point in the future it'll go back up. And it won't. Because it's inevitable. And now, to go on with crypto, actually. See, crypto is a great model to think of this third way to make money. And you should pay attention to crypto holders and see what they do so that you can see how dangerous it can be and how lucrative it can be. Because there's no question that cryptos have been extremely lucrative, but you only make money when you sell. And that's the thing. So you only make money when you buy an asset, when you sell the asset. Now, it doesn't matter if you think that the currency is debasing, you know, with hyperinflation and all this crap that's going on right now. That's not really important, because I'm not talking about the specific contingent events that are occurring now. I'm talking long term, during the course of your life. When you buy an asset, whatsoever that asset may be, You have to understand that you've only made money when you sell it. So you have to know at what price point to sell it. You don't want to hold on to it beyond its expiration date. You want to know that magic moment, that magic number that you're like, okay, I'll sell. And don't get greedy. Don't get greedy. A lot of people fail because, see, they get to their limit, the price at which they'd sell, and the thing is still going up in value, so they're like, okay, I'm not going to sell it now, I'll wait a little bit. And it keeps on going up, and then it starts going down. But they start saying to themselves, negotiating with themselves. They say, well, you know, I decided not to sell it before, so I'll just like not sell it now because it'll come back up. And of course it doesn't come back up, and they lose their shirts. And you see my point. You have to be really disciplined in that third way of making money. Because what that third way of making money is trading. That's what you're doing. You're trading. You're buying something at a low price, expecting it to sell it later at a high price. You have to be very disciplined. See? That's why personally I think that the second way to make money, to sell the time of other people, well, that's the best way to make money. See? Selling your own time, you're being a chump if you do that. Yeah, because you have a limited amount of time. And as I explained with the example of the lawyer, there's a hard ceiling to how much money you can make. And it's not that high. I mean, you're a young guy, you think that $1.2 million is a lot of money. It's not. You'll find in life that $1.2 million is almost chump change. Yeah. And so the point becomes, selling your own time, you're just throwing your life away. And if you are a capable guy, you should be thinking to yourself, how do I get out of this situation of being a wage slave? Because that's what you are. You're a wage slave. You're a slave to your hourly wage. And you're going to throw your life away. Don't do it. Don't do it when there are other ways to make money. Because unfortunately, we need money. It's an ugly reality, but it's the truth. We need resources. Yeah. The thing is, see, we find it ugly because money in and of itself, this abstraction that converts our labor and effort into something, you know, that is tradable, it's kind of ugly in a way, and it is. But just because of it, you can't like ignore it or pretend it's not there or figure out a way to get more of it with as little effort as possible. Because ultimately, that's your goal. You want to get as much money as possible with as little effort as possible so that you can enjoy life. Because life is very, very short. And you don't want to be throwing it away, wasting your time.